So perhaps you've been lurking on the sidelines for a while, dreaming of that Star Trek lifestyle that I've used countless times to make women giddy with lust. Yes, I have. And you're thinking to yourself, maybe I should finally take the plunge and buy myself a smart home hub, but there are so many to choose from. And people keep banging on about this thing called Home Assistant, but every time they tell you about their Raspberry Pi, you instantly realise they're a virgin and stop talking to them. They're everywhere.
I use Home Assistant!
They're on trains, they're in city centres, I'm one. My virginity grew back quite some time ago because I am obsessed with Home Assistant. But if I could do it all again and start from scratch without having to learn anything, of course I would do that. I would still be able to talk to girls. Well, what if I told you there is a tablet-shaped smart home gateway where the manufacturer had installed Home Assistant already for you, and you didn't need to do anything at all to make it work other than sign up for a LinknLink account and scan a QR code on a screen? It can control this Matter-enabled LED strip from Yeelight. It can control this TUYA Smart Life Wi-Fi lamp. It can control this Philips Hue lamp by connecting directly to my Philips Hue bridge and telling my Philips Hue bridge what to do. It can control this Zigbee plug socket from Candeo, and it can control this LinknLink light bulb, which is also Zigbee. It can basically control any device you throw at it. Now what if I told you that all of these devices, including the TUYA Smart Life Wi-Fi devices, were all operating locally on this device? They don't need the internet. Your head would explode, obviously. I mean, it would. Well, allow me to demonstrate. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to learn what Matter is, and Zigbee is, and Wi-Fi is, and all these different protocols because I'm too busy having sex with ladies. You don't need to. Just take my word for it when I tell you this thing works with everything, with one caveat, and I'll explain exactly what that is shortly. What if I then told you that LinknLink, the company behind this, have a LinknLink skill for Alexa and for Google Home and for Apple HomeKit too, so that all of these devices will be usable using your face hole?
Get to the point.
The point is that all of those devices will be controllable using your face hole for free. There's no Nabu Casa subscription to pay because it's a LinknLink skill that connects all of these things to the cloud and makes them accessible to all of your smart home companions. This is the new LinknLink ISG MAX, which is an upgrade to the previous ISG that I reviewed about 6 months ago. This thing has some very slight changes to its physical hardware, and there are a whole bunch of software updates I need to tell you about because this is now the ultimate smart home gateway. Almost every concern I had with the last one has now been addressed, and this is the thing to buy. Thanks to LinknLink for sponsoring today's video and for sending me their LinknLink ISG MAX. As with the previous model, you get a stand and a power supply, but unlike the original model, there is now no Zigbee dongle because they put the Zigbee radio inside the housing. Just like the original gateway, it runs both the ISG software that gives you a nice, easy-to-use front-end dashboard, but also gives you Home Assistant in the background baked in, complete with the hacks store so that you can add pretty much any smart home device in existence. And this is more surprising than that time that Madonna laid her eggs in Drake. But the true magic of this product is that anything you add to Home Assistant will automatically appear in the LinknLink front-end dashboard, but probably equally as importantly, anything you use the LinknLink ISG dashboard to add also gets sent into Home Assistant. And the reason this is majorly important is because it means that you can actually add TUYA Smart Life Wi-Fi products to LinknLink and they will appear in Home Assistant. Normally, to get TUYA Wi-Fi products to work in Home Assistant locally, you have to do a whole load of faffing about. What? Here, you've got a really straightforward wizard that adds it straight to ISG and then it automatically appears in Home Assistant too. It's not just TUYA Smart Life Wi-Fi products though. You can also add Broadlink products, LinknLink's own devices, various Wi-Fi products from various manufacturers, and Matter products too. But first of all, let me say how weird it is to finally have a third party creating an off-the-shelf Home Assistant solution. This is weirder than the characters in Friends not recognizing Bruce Willis, despite the fact they've all seen Die Hard.
Die Hard, still great.
Yeah. Hey, what do you say we make it a double feature?
What else you rent?
Die Hard 2.
It's literally Bruce Willis. What are you laughing at? It's literally Bruce. Chandler, you saw him in a movie like 10 minutes ago. So as this is the Max version of a product I already reviewed, what's changed? First off, the Zigbee radio is now built into the device. It's not a little USB dongle, which frees up the USB port. And this is important because you can now buy a Z-Wave dongle separately from, say, AOTech, and plug this into the USB port and get Z-Wave as well. I said at the beginning there was one caveat, and that's that Z-Wave is missing. If you add a Z-Wave dongle, it's no longer missing, and this is the ultimate smart home hub. Secondly, the new version has an 8-core processor instead of a 4-core processor, and is now capable of 5 GHz Wi-Fi, which means everything should run lightning fast, and it's now more powerful than the Raspberry Pi you might have installed Home Assistant on yourself. Home Assistant. You can now add a custom background too if you don't like the nice purple thing and you want to put your own picture in there, and you can also use a photo frame style screensaver which will show pictures of your loved ones. Software updates can now also be done via the internet rather than having to use a USB stick, which is what you had to do previously. There is now also an area called add-ons where things like Spotify exist, and a whole bunch of nerdy stuff that I don't understand and I'll never probably be able to use because I still talk to girls. Yep, I said it.
Bespoke configuration.yaml files!
Spotify could prove to be a valuable addition, but the speakers on this thing are horrible. You can Bluetooth to another set of speakers, or you could just use Spotify as like a way of controlling another media device playing Spotify. The one thing I will say with this is that the Spotify controls only exist in the add-ons page currently. There's no floating widget, and I think that's something they need to add. They are making changes to this thing all the time, usually off the back of me going, that should be a thing. So that might be a thing by the time you get to watch this video, or it will probably appear in a future update because they have made so many changes since the last video that I fully anticipate they're going to keep improving this thing going forwards. Just like Skynet kept improving the Terminator until it eventually defeated Sarah Connor.
Okay, Pilgrim, it's roundup time.
Another really cool feature is that you can now add all of the devices from your existing Home Assistant integration on, say, a Raspberry Pi or a NUC and get them to all be added into the ISG dashboard too. Paul from the past, can you show the boys and girls how to do that? Yeah, all right. He's a good egg. We hang out all the time. I used to be him. I've just found this. Under Home Assistant Service, you can add your own Home Assistant service from here. IP address is the IP address of my Raspberry Pi. And we just need the user token, which I should be able to get. Long-lived access tokens. Create one of those. Cool, that's now on my clipboard, so I should be able to go back and paste that in. Save it. Failed. Brilliant. It was pretty difficult to figure out, but that it added a space at the end of the user access token. I had to use the keyboard to get rid of the space. That was difficult. Can I just enter it?
That's what she said.
Yeah, I mean, cool and everything, but I could have done that anyway. I already achieved this. I think I just figured out what it does. Of course, yes, I can access Home Assistant's dashboard. Great. That's not what it's for. Go to Devices, and then Add, and then Home Assistant. I wonder, what are you going to find? A lot of things. That's all. Oh my goodness. That's all of my Home Assistant devices from my Raspberry Pi. So sadly, what you're experiencing there is like a remote control of the Raspberry Pi or whatever it is you've got your existing Home Assistant instance on, which is cool. It's a really cool thing to be able to do, but personally, what I'd like to do is import all of the devices and all of my settings off my existing Raspberry Pi and stick them on this thing instead. We'll have to do all of that manually. That's just something worth bearing in mind. And finally, they have an energy monitoring section, which I haven't personally been able to make use of because I don't have any energy monitoring devices. If you do have, this is what it will look like, which I imagine is very exciting for you. Before I start on the things that aren't quite right, I think it's important to acknowledge that LinknLink have been true to their word from the beginning when it comes to things they planned to do. They said last video, okay, you can only add currently a light bulb for TUYA Smart Life. I think that was the only thing you could add. Now, you can add like 7 or 8 different types of things. They said they're working on it, and they have done. In my last video, when I added a TUYA Smart Life Wi-Fi bulb to the ISG gateway, it appeared in Home Assistant as it was meant to, but you couldn't control things like color or color temperature. Those things are now resolved too. They said that they planned to make it possible that you would be able to use their Zigbee radio within Home Assistant instead of using it in the ISG gateway interface itself, which I thought was quite brave because they're talking about moving people away from their thing and into Home Assistant. But you know what? They did it. I can now actually use the Zigbee radio that is built into this thing in Home Assistant instead of the ISG gateway. One thing it's worth mentioning is if you do this, if you make that switch, because it's now your choice, you can't switch back. You can only use it in Home Assistant. That's how committed LinknLink are to allowing you to use Home Assistant instead of their software. With that out of the way, here are the current elephants in the room. So the Matter functionality of this thing, if you have Matter enabled devices, there is only one to choose from, and that's a light bulb. Currently. I have curtains. I have a curtain motor that is Matter enabled. I can't add it to the ISG gateway, and because Matter isn't currently enabled in the Home Assistant portion of this device either, I basically can't use my curtain motor. However, LinknLink have said very clearly that at the end of this month, they will have Matter functionality in Home Assistant, and because of everything they've already done that they said they were going to do, I fully believe them. They have said they guarantee they will definitely have this working in the next update. Next up, I have a TUYA Wi-Fi smart curtain motor, and it's great, and I want to use it. Unfortunately, there is no curtain option when you go to add a TUYA device under the ISG gateway section of this. If I go into the Home Assistant section of this, I could add it via TUYA, via the TUYA integration for Home Assistant, but it won't run locally. It will be reliant on the internet and the cloud. I could add the TUYA local integration for Home Assistant through hacks, but it's a little bit more awkward, and I really just want to do it in the ISG gateway. Again, this is something they're going to add at some point, it's just not there right now. At time of filming, you use the LinknLink app to send photos to the ISG device so that you can use them as part of your screensaver, but you can only add one at a time, which, as you can imagine, is quite time consuming if you want to add lots. Again, this is going to be fixed in September's update, apparently, along with Matter for Home Assistant. So Matter will be enabled in Home Assistant, photos will be enabled for multiple uploads in the LinknLink app in September, and there's another one, hang on. And Z-Wave. The Z-Wave thing should work. I have a Z-Wave dongle from AOTech and I plugged it in. It didn't work.
No, you bastard.
They think they might have fixed that now. I haven't had a chance to test it yet. Perhaps I should test it. Wait there. No. There's still no Z-Wave, sadly, but this is another thing that they will almost certainly have working by the time this video comes out. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Stay tuned. What? I'm filming a lot of this on the fly. And finally, I did say earlier, there's an advantage to having Home Assistant installed yourself on your own hardware, and that is that you can update it anytime you like. In this case, LinknLink have to be the guys doing the updates because this is all a very specialized service. This means you have to wait for LinknLink to do the Home Assistant updates, and you'll always be a little bit behind. If that bothers you, you will want to do this all yourself on a Raspberry Pi, on a Nook, on whatever it is you want to install Home Assistant on. If, however, you are a beginner and you're not wanting to be on the cutting edge of Home Assistant every second of every day, this is an incredible way to get into using smart homes that makes sense. It's really, really easy to get working, and I can't recommend it enough. This is probably the most important gateway to ever come out. As usual, there are links in the description as to where you can pick one of these things up, and it's heavily discounted right now. Probably cost you more money to buy a Raspberry Pi and a Zigbee stick and Wi-Fi antennas and all the other physical hardware this thing has going, and it has Home Assistant built in. In the meantime, these incredible people are my patrons from Patreon, and without them, I'd be working in a call center. I'm thanking one every week, and this week it's Hurley, who I like to think is the guy from Lost, and makes me feel better about myself that he would be a patron of mine. Thanks, Hurley. He's my latest patron, and it really does mean everything to me. If you want to be like these guys or Hurley, you can do that at either Patreon or buy me a one-off beer at PayPal, and either way, I will genuinely love you forever. These are my Facebooks, my X's, my Threads, my Instagrams, and my TikToks. Come and hang out there and can be best friends. See you next time.